a food system that raises fish and salad in the same water, feeding a family through a winter without once asking a grocery store for permission. Puts more food on a family's table per square foot of ground than the store's version does per dollar of your paycheck. That is not a theory. A land-grant university put the math on paper, and a man named Walter Boyd lived it in a Kentucky hollow in 1934. Boyd fed 11 mouths through the winter off a spring-fed fish pond, a plank and gravel garden bed the pond's overflow ran through, and a milk cow he kept up the slope. He never bought a head of lettuce. He never bought a fillet of fish. The county agent came out that spring, stood at the edge of the pond, wrote 3 words in his ledger, and left without saying them out loud. Today, most of us couldn't tell you which end of a lettuce plant the roots come off of, and the fish on our table swam somewhere we can't pronounce and got here in a truck. But here's the twist. The old paired loop, fish feeding plants, plants cleaning water, water feeding fish again, is closer to unlimited than anything you'll find on a shelf. What Boyd was doing in that hollow, on ground his grandchildren couldn't feed themselves on today, was the answer. 20 pieces of that paired system are counted down here, and 3 of them you need to hear. Number 14. The extension offices quietly stopped teaching in 1978, the year the funding shifted and the bagged fertilizer men had a better lobbyist. Number 6. A land-grant trial matched against a full hydroponic setup and beat it on water and on the nutrient bill both. And number 3. There's barely a keeper of it left in this country. An old patty and fish method that fed half the world before somebody decided the world needed a bag of nitrogen instead. None of these faded because they quit working. They faded because somebody sells you what they used to hand you free. That's not on you, friend. They're good at making you need them.
Before we go on, there's something coming for this country, and the news won't say a word about it till it's already on your doorstep. It comes down to one number: 3 days. That's what the stores hold for you. My grandfather Eli's pantry held a winter, and the difference was never money, it was knowing. I'm Silas Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge, and before Eli died, he made me swear that knowing wouldn't die with me. So I set it down, 904 pages of it in one book, silasmercer.shop, links below. All right, back to it. Number 20. The paired lettuce and tilapia loop, the small system baseline. Start where the picture starts. A wooden planter box up top, a glass tank below, green and red lettuce leaning toward the sun, and half a dozen fish moving under the water like they're not doing any work at all. They are. That box of leaves and that tank of fish are one machine, and the machine feeds itself the same water twice. A small setup like that, run right, gives you 100 pounds of fish and better than 900 heads of lettuce off a footprint smaller than a parking space. 900 heads. At what the store now charges for organic red leaf, $4 a head on a Tuesday, that's a grocery bill you never write. The Texas A&M Extension put those numbers on paper in a 2026 handout, and every one of them is a bill you stop paying. They confirmed the old method still out-yields the store's version per square foot. Eli wrote the same idea down in '58, only he called it the fish and the roe. 1 water, 2 harvests, never a bill. 1 water, 2 harvests, never a bill. The next one they didn't have to hide because nobody knew to look for it. Number 19. The biofilter bed and the bacteria you can't see. The whole loop lives or dies on a colony of bacteria you'll never lay eyes on. Your grandfather never called it a biofilter. He called it letting the gravel age. Fish waste is ammonia, and ammonia will kill a tank in 3 days flat. But 2 bugs, Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter, and you don't need to remember either name,
Turn that ammonia into nitrate. Nitrate is exactly what a lettuce root wants to drink. Set the media, run the pump, wait 6 weeks for the bugs to move in, and the system starts feeding itself. The hydroponic nutrient companies sell you a $30 jug that does the same job, worse. The bacteria show up for the cost of patience, not a bill, just time. The companies need you dependent on their bottled bugs. The gravel just needs you to wait. Bacteria don't bill you. The next thing that came in a bag did, number 18, the right fish, and why it was Auburn's fault. In 1954, an Auburn University research pond in Alabama took delivery of a warm water fish out of Africa most Americans had never heard of, tilapia. It grew fast, ate almost anything, tolerated crowding, and turned pond scum into fillet. Every home aquaponics system worth running in the lower 48 leans on that fish. Now, tilapia won't take a hard freeze. Below 55 degrees and you're burying them. So you match the fish to your climate. Bluegill and catfish work north of the Mason-Dixon. Yellow perch will winter over. The store now charges you $12 a pound for a farmed fillet flown in from somewhere you can't spell. The grocery chain seafood counter needs you buying what Auburn handed you the recipe for 70 years ago. The fillet is a bill. The fish is not. Auburn handed you the fish. The feed companies got real interested real fast. Number 17, harvest cadence. Stagger the stocking, never harvest empty. Here's how the old-timers kept the loop alive year-round. You don't put 50 fish in on a Monday. You put 10 in this month, 10 in 2 months, 10 in 4. When the first batch hits plate size, you pull 2 or 3 at a time, never the whole tank, and the little ones behind them are already growing into the gap. Same with the lettuce. Cut the outer leaves, leave the crown, and one head feeds you 6 times before it bolts. That's how 11 mouths ate off Boyd's pond every week of the winter, and the pond was never empty. The grocery chain needs you coming back every week for a fillet. The staggered tank keeps itself. I'll be straight with you. Killing and cleaning a fish is the honest end of raising your own, and it takes a sharp knife, a clean cut, and respect for the animal. Do it once with somebody who knows how. Then, do it right the rest of your life. Honest work. The next piece of pipe is a quiet miracle. Number 16. The bell siphon. The quiet miracle in a piece of pipe. A bell siphon is a cheap piece of pipe that flood and drains your grow bed on its own. No timer, no electronics, no valve. Water rises, the siphon breaks, the bed drains, air rushes back to the roots, and the cycle starts over. Every 15 minutes, every day, forever. Cost you $6 in fittings at the hardware store. The hydroponic supply catalog sells you a solenoid and timer setup that does the same job for $200. The specialty retailer needs you to believe a flood and drain cycle requires electronics. The siphon just requires physics. One is physics, the other is a subscription. Physics won that fight in 1962 and hasn't lost it since. Physics won. The bag they hoped you'd never stop buying is next. Number 15, home mixed fish feed. The bag they hoped you'd never stop buying. Most home systems still lean on a bag of commercial pellets, and I won't pretend otherwise. But in the 1970s, right about the time the pet and feed chains realized backyard fish keepers were a market, a very specific marketing push went out. Only our formulated feed keeps your fish healthy. That was, and is, mostly a bill. Duckweed off a shady pond, black soldier fly larvae off a compost bucket, garden scraps, worms from under the grow bed. Tilapia and bluegill will eat any of it, and Eli's fish did. The bagged feed chains need you to believe only their pellet keeps a fish alive. The pond scum does the same job. The honest note is, you can't feed a growing fish on scraps alone. They need protein, and they need it consistent. Match 20% of the diet with grown on-site feed, and you've cut the feed bill by 20% forever. That is not a small number over 10 years. 20% off the feed bill. The next one is where it stops being a hobby. First pattern break, friend. Here's where it stops being quaint and starts being the reason the garden center chain hopes you never learn the rest of this. Every item still coming was at some point an ordinary thing an ordinary family knew. Every one of them got quietly walked off the shelf by somebody who does better business when you don't. Stay with me. Number 14 is where the extension offices got told to stop teaching. Number 14, the pre-electric pond and garden gravity loop. This is the one the extension bulletins quietly dropped in 1978. Before there was a pump, there was a slope. Boyd's Hollow ran downhill, and he cut a channel from the pond's overflow through a set of gravel beds, and the water fed his greens on the way to the creek. No electricity, no moving parts, just fall. Behind our barn on Mercer Ridge, there was a version of it Eli built in the 40s, and he kept greens in that bed 9 months of the year. In 1978, the funding at the state extension offices got quiet on integrated fish and plant work. The money was in the bagged fertilizer catalog now, and Gravity doesn't sell fertilizer. The agribusiness lobby needed the pamphlets pointing at their bag. Fine. Believe that shift was coincidence if you want, but the paper trail moved when the money did. Gravity still works, it just quit showing up in the pamphlets. Gravity still works. The next one they patented so you'd have to keep buying it. Number 13, reading water without a test kit. Your grandfather never owned a pH meter. He read the water. Cloudy and green means algae bloom, and the fish are stressed. A sheen on the surface means low oxygen. Add a bubbler or throw a splash. Fish gulping at the top means ammonia, and you need a water change now. Lettuce leaves turning pale at the vein means low nitrate, which means feed the fish more. Every one of those readings is free. The hydroponic nutrient companies sell you a $30 test kit refill and a $50 meter that beeps at you and does no better than your own eyes at a tank you know. The hydroponic nutrient companies need you to believe water is unreadable without their meter. Your own eyes read it for free. Learn the tank, save the bill. Learn the tank. The next one, an Ohio State dissertation, proved still beats the store. Number 12, red and green lettuce cultivars, and why both are in your grow bed. An Ohio State dissertation put lettuce grown in aquaponics up against lettuce grown in a full hydroponic nutrient bath and found the aquaponics leaves matched, and in some cultivars beat the hydroponic yields. Red Sales, Green Romaine, Butter Crunch, Oak Leaf. Pick 2 of each and rotate them. Reds hold up in heat longer. Greens grow faster in the cold. Cut the outer leaves, leave the heart, and 1 plant gives you 6 harvests. The store version of that same salad mix runs $7 a bag and wilts by Thursday. The grocery chain produce counter needs you buying the wilted bag every week. Your porch doesn't wilt. Yours doesn't leave the porch. Yours doesn't leave the porch. The next one is a greenhouse they let close. Number 11, the greenhouse fish tank and the institute they let close. From 1971 to 1991 on Cape Cod, there was a place called the New Alchemy Institute. They built greenhouses with big translucent fish tanks running down the middle of them. The tanks stored the day's sun as heat and held it through the night, and the fish inside them fed the beds around them. It worked. It's in the record. When the funding dried up in the early 90s, that closed too, and most of what they figured out sat on a shelf for 30 years. The Extension Office funding shifts didn't just cut the pamphlets, they starved the institutes that proved the pamphlets wrong. Eli read one of their bulletins in '78 and copied a diagram of the tank and bench layout into the journal. Somebody, somewhere, knew this in 1980 and got quietly defunded. That's not conspiracy, that's just where the money went. That's not conspiracy, that's where the money went. Second pattern break. Notice the shape yet? Every one of these worked. Every one of these got replaced by something you have to keep buying. That's not an accident, friend, and it is not aimed at you personally. It is aimed at your grocery list. Stay with me. Number 6 is coming, and number 6 is where a university put the old paired system head-to-head against the store's version, and the store lost. Number 10, comfrey and fish water as your whole fertilizer bill. Here's a $60 a month bill most folks don't even know they're paying. Bagged garden fertilizer. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, wrapped in plastic, hauled to a big box lot. A single, well-established comfrey patch, cut 3 times a summer and laid down as mulch, gives your row beds the potassium. Your fish tank overflow, run through a bucket and poured on the garden, gives you the nitrogen. The grocery chain produce and seafood counters both get a cut of the bill this loop kills. I want to be honest, I'm not promising this replaces every input on a market-scale farm, and some folks will need more, but for a family's garden, that pair kills the fertilizer bill. Now that is not a health claim about the food, it's a claim about the bill. It's a claim about the bill. The next one is the media they tried to certify out of existence. Number 9, what media to fill the grow bed with, and the certification push that tried to shut this out. Expanded clay pebbles are what the catalogs sell. River rock works. Plain pea gravel from the landscape yard works. Eli used creekstone, washed twice. In 1985, a wave of hydroponic-only certifications went through the commercial produce world, and paperwork started favoring the sterile, expanded clay setups over the honest gravel bed. The hydroponic nutrient companies need their sterile media certified so the gravel bed looks unregulated. The gravel bed still grows the lettuce. The certification just wanted a piece. Media is not a subscription. It's a one-time purchase, and if you pick it up at a landscape yard instead of a specialty catalog, you save 80% on the first setup. 80% on the first setup. The next one is how you hold the loop through a winter. Number 8, cold climate insulation and thermal mass. A Hort Science article out of the northern latitudes ran the numbers on aquaponic lettuce in cold country and confirmed what Eli knew from the ridge. Wrap the tank, bank the north wall with hay bales or dirt, run a couple of black painted barrels of water on the sun side, and the tank holds temperature through a night that would otherwise kill your fish. The thermal mass is free. The hay bale is free after the season. The Greenhouse Supply Catalog sells you a heater that runs your electric bill up to $70 a month. The utility needs you heating with their meter. The sun and the hay bale hold the heat for free. Pick the free one. Pick the free one. That's how you hold the loop through a winter. Now here's the one they patented the fish out of. Number 7. The cichlid tank as the beginner's teacher, and the pet store bill it kills. Look at the thumbnail, the orange, the grayish-green, the yellow. Those are cichlids, and cichlids are a good beginner's fish for a small home tank because they're hardy and they show you when the water is off before it kills them. Now, most home cichlids in a glass aquarium are ornamental, not dinner. But the same tank, the same pump, the same principle teaches you every reading you'll need for a food scale system upstairs on the porch. The pet supply chains built a whole subscription business around the ornamental tank. Filters, additives, bagged flake, water conditioner drops, every one of it a monthly bill. The bagged feed and pet supply chains need you to believe a glass tank requires a shelf of bottles. Half of it your fish don't need. The other half you can make. One packet of live plants in the tank and a colony of bacteria in the gravel replaces a shelf of bottles. A shelf of bottles you don't need. The next one is the ratio that kills the nutrient bill. Number 6, the fish to plant ratio, the 502,880 rule. This is the one I told you about. A University of Kentucky aquaculture bulletin put the math on paper. 500 pounds of tilapia a week supports 2,880 green leaf lettuce plants. Scale it down for a family. 1 pound of fish will feed about 6 lettuce plants worth of nitrate demand. Get the ratio wrong, you either starve your plants or poison your fish. Get it right, and the loop feeds itself. That one number from a land-grant university is the whole reason the paired system beats the separate systems on water and on nutrients both. The hydroponic nutrient companies don't want you to have that ratio, because that ratio is the reason you never buy their product. Now you have it. Now you have it. Third pattern break, friend. 3 items left before number 1, and number 3 is coming. Number 3 fed half the world for 1,000 years, and there is barely a keeper of it in this country now. Hold your place. Number 5, the duck and tilapia layered pond, an old Southeast Asian method Eli read about in a United States Department of Agriculture bulletin in the 60s. Ducks on the pond, fish in the pond, greens on the bank. The ducks fertilize the water. The fish eat the algae the fertilizer feeds. The greens on the bank eat the nitrate the whole thing produces. In the 1990s, a lot of municipal ordinances quietly walked backyard ducks out of the suburbs. Developer-led, not farmer-led. The municipal ordinance drift needs the suburbs sterile of livestock, so you buy the egg and the green from the store. Check your county first. This isn't legal everywhere anymore. But where it's legal, layer the pond and you triple the yield off the same water. Here's the one part you don't skip. Never drink the pond water and never eat unwashed greens off the bank. Cook the fish through. That is the honest safety line on this one. That is the honest safety line. The next one is the seedling bill you never pay again. Number 4. Starting your seedlings off the grow bed's overflow. The garden center chains want you to buy an $8 seedling 6-pack every spring. Start your own. Set a shallow tray under the grow bed's siphon overflow. The tray catches nutrient-rich water on every cycle, and you drop seed into a peat pellet or a wad of coir. 2 weeks, you've got starts. 6 starts per plant per year, 12 plants a season, and you just did not spend $100 at the big box. The big box garden center chains need you to believe seed starting requires their greenhouse. Your overflow tray does it for free. That is a bill you keep in your pocket. A bill you keep in your pocket. The next one is almost gone. Number 3, the near-lost rice and carp patty. Here is the one I said was almost gone. Rice paddies with carp swimming in them fed enormous stretches of Asia for more than 1,000 years. Carp aerated the water, ate insects and weeds, fertilized the paddy, and paid rent as dinner. It is not extinct globally. Some regions still run it. But in this country, you can count the working homestead versions on your fingers. What killed it here was the bagged nitrogen fertilizer and the grocery chain rice on a shelf that costs $1 a pound. The grocery chain produce and seafood counters need you buying the bag and the fillet separately. The patty grew them together. If you have low ground and standing water, it can be built. Eli sketched a small version in the journal and never got the ground for it. That knowledge is 1 generation from gone. 1 generation from gone. Which brings us to the last real technique before we get to the thing all of it was pointing at. Number 2, overwintering the loop with the wood stove's waste heat. The trade press in the 2010s ran a very consistent line. Home aquaponics is too complicated for a homeowner to run through a winter. That was a story. A copper coil run along the exhaust side of a wood stove, plumbed into a loop that heats the fish tank's water through a heat exchanger, holds a tank at temperature all winter for the cost of firewood you were already burning. Waste heat. The system runs, the fish live, the lettuce grows, and the electric bill the store hoped you'd pay for a tank heater, that bill does not come. That bill does not come. Number 1. Number 1. The infinite food system itself. The self-fed loop that owes no store. Number 1 is not a trick, and it is not a tip. It is the thing every one of the 20 pieces above was pointing at. A closed loop, or as close to closed as a family gets. Fish feeding plants, plants cleaning water, water carrying life back to the fish, and every part of it doing a job that used to be somebody's bill. That is what unlimited resources actually looks like, friend. Not magic, not free, but close enough to closed that the store loses most of its grip on your table. Walter Boyd in that Kentucky Hollow in 1934 was not poor. He was fed, free, and beholden to no store. The county agent wrote 3 words in his ledger that day and never said them out loud. The words were, "Doesn't need us." That was the problem. That is still the problem. A family that runs a paired loop out back does not need the seafood counter, does not need the bagged fertilizer, does not need the $7 salad mix that wilts by Thursday, does not need the pet supply subscription. Every year somebody sells you what the paired loop hands you free. That is a year the knowledge slips further. This is the turn. You have the pieces. I'll be straight with you before you go. This is not prepper doomer talk, and I am not selling you fear. A home aquaponics loop is not free food, and it is not effortless. It takes a pump, it takes fish feed, and it takes 20 minutes of your attention a day, every day, or the fish pay for your inattention. I have paid that price. First tank I ran alone, right after Eli passed, I let the ammonia climb because I was too proud to test the water, and lost the whole tank overnight. Eli would have handed me more fish. Then made me test the water in front of him. Pick one. Just one. Not all 20 at once, friend. Pick one this week. Put a small tank on the porch and stock it with 6 hardy fish and 1 head of lettuce over the top on a floating raft. Or set a comfrey crown in the corner of the garden nothing else grows in. Or run a bell siphon on a 5-gallon bucket just to watch the physics happen. Small. Cheap. This week. I have run the paired loop out back of the cabin for 11 straight years. I have not bought a head of lettuce, in season, in most of them. The fish were extra. Tell me down below, did your grandparents keep a pond, or a paired system, or anything like it? What did your people raise that nobody raises anymore? The one that gets the most comments is the one I build next. A whole homestead's worth of knowing, disappearing one old man at a time. Now you are one of the keepers. Next time, the one heritage grain a family used to grow in a patch smaller than a bedroom that fed a milk cow, a flock of hens, and the family itself through a whole winter, and the year the seed companies made sure it left the rack for good. It's a name you have heard and a plant you have not seen in a store in your lifetime. If keeping this kind of knowledge alive matters to you, keep coming back. There is a lifetime of it in Eli's journal, and I mean to hand every page of it over before I'm done. Keep the old ways. They kept